What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Just in the van, heading over to the shop and running a few errands on my way over. Gonna swing by the post office to drop off some Governor's Club orders. Thank you guys for putting in some orders. I try to get to the post office weekly, but to be honest, I don't stay on top of the Governor's Club Instagram as often as I should. Up until a few days ago, the last post I made on the Instagram was in October or something crazy when we went down to Riverside fall meet. So I've been slacking there real hard, but for the 9 years, almost 10 years now that has even been around, thank you guys so much for all the support there. The only reason why I started a YouTube channel, a podcast, any of that stuff, even the shop, is really because of the amount of support worldwide that's been around for the Governor's Club. So I really appreciate it. Been able to meet so many people from all over the place and have been able to stay with people in Europe through relationships that have been started through the Governor's Club Instagram. So even when I'm just sending stickers out, it means a lot to me. So thank you guys for that support. Starting to get a few furnishings up for decoration. When I was a kid, my father was the sitting chairman, chairman of the Latchkey Corporation, which was the local Lakes Region, New Hampshire ice racing committee. And before I was born, he was racing a Chevelle with a good friend of his. My dad built the car, and his best friend Jim was the driver. And they were kind of the most crew on like in the area for the Lakes Region area. And when I was a kid, my dad started driving his own car. He built a front-wheel drive division car, and he built a Volkswagen Rabbit. So that actually is where my first love, or the inception of my love for European cars started, notably Volkswagens, because by the time I was 16, I was 16 in 2001. So Mark I Golfs, Rabbits, Jettas, whatever, were $500 cars in the early 2000s. So that's where I got my start. This is one of the Latchkey Cup posters, like product posters that they put out as promotional pieces. And I think this one was the 8th annual. And what's cool is in the drawing, that's my dad's Rabbit on the poster. It's too bad they don't have a date on that poster. I can't remember what year that was. That was late 80s, early 90s. And it was really awesome. I mean, it's a time that my dad looks back on fondly. He's got great memories of all that. They worked with the Norris Cotton Cancer Center, and that was basically a fundraiser to cure childhood cancer. And so all the benefits, or all the proceeds, benefited the Cancer Society. So that was a really cool thing that my dad was doing when I was a kid. Good morning, guys. This episode is jumping all over the place, but today is a Saturday, and we are just over a week away from leaving for Chattanooga, Tennessee. So it's crunch time. Luckily, I've had a lot of laser work coming into the shop, which is great. I'm grateful for that because that helps pay for this whole endeavor. But that being said, there's so much going on in such a tight amount of time. So I've been trying my best to get as much sleep as possible, but it's been full-blown like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning nights, trying to get up as early as possible as well. I have yet to decide if I'm focusing on the 700 today or the van. The van is priority because that's what's getting me to Chattanooga. But I haven't quite decided if I'm really taking the 700 or the Corvair. So I'm gonna take some time today on the interior of the 700. There's a lot I want to switch up. I need to rebuff the paint. I really need to get it in the air and just do some undercarriage checks. You may have also noticed Ludwick's garage gear is in. I made a few posts about it on Instagram, but the t-shirts, long sleeve tees, 5-panel jockey caps, and the vintage rope hats are in time for Riverside. That's where they're going to debut, basically. I'm going to have them available at Riverside, and then after Riverside, any remaining stock, also a second run or second batch, will be available online for everybody else who didn't make it to Riverside. So more on that later. Right now, just trying to get a game plan for the day here in the shop. I'm also still in the process of getting the workshop side of the space set up. And I haven't had enough time to really dedicate to it. Every time I come over here, it's for like one task and then I'm back to the laser shop. But picked up a stand for the bench grinder and the belt sander. My dad has his 6-inch bench grinder and belt sander on their own stand, and they aren't on casters, but it's been really nice to be able to move that around and not have them fixed to like a bench and using up workable like assembly space or anything like that. So I kind of went for the same idea here in this shop space. So I bought a stand and made a 3/4 inch plywood like base. My father has a woodworking shop, so he routed the corners and beveled it and made it all look nice and pretty. And I painted it. Gonna get that on, and already drilled all the holes so the bench grinder and belt sander mount opposite each other. So just gonna put that together real quick. Okay, so the center console in the 700, I designed in a laser cut myself, and this was kind of to just get my controller and a few other things just at the center console within arm's reach while I was driving. If you've seen the build thread video I posted, I don't know, a few episodes back, I talk about how we had to bring the driver's seat position almost into the back seat of the 700 body because of where the pedals of the Beetle Pan are in relation to the dashboard of the 700 body. So I sit so far back that you can't really reach the dashboard without leaning forward quite a bit. So I put everything right here at the center console. So with that being said, I kind of whipped this up. It's all made out of acrylic laser cut and acrylic welded together. And put a couple cup holders in the back. I laser cut this leather pad and engraved the BMW logo on it. And Frenched in the Airlift 3P 3H controller into it. This was originally my compressor main kill switch. I've got a good 100 amp alternator on this car, so it does charge at idle while the compressor's running. But I do like having the option of being able to shut the compressor off while it's running, while the car's idling, if I have to. So, and I've got some USB chargers here for my phone or anything else I need to charge while I'm driving. I have driven this car quite a bit. I've driven it 3.5 hours each way to Brunswick, Maine for VAG Fair back a couple years ago. But I want to switch it up. I'm going to put the chargers elsewhere, and I'm thinking of building a 3P controller stand similar to what I built in my Lada, the Russian Soviet car I had. Corey's here. I was just talking about how I wasn't sure what car I was going to take. Thought maybe I was going to take the Corvair simply because it's not giving me as many temperamental issues as the 700 has been lately, and I just like cruising around Chattanooga. So my fear was I was going to bring the 700 down, and it was just going to be throwing tantrums all the time. Basically, it's a carburetor issue. I've been chasing a few different issues in the carburetor, whether or not it's choke, fuel shut-off solenoid, possibly something in the carburetor. It's running okay now. I've had a draw issue with the battery too, and I'm just running a real small garden, like lawn and garden battery, because it actually fits where the factory battery went. So anyway, I basically decided in the last few minutes that I am going to take the 700. Corey kind of talked me into that. He might like the car more than I do. So that being said, the plan originally was going to just get the van sorted and hopefully bang that out in like an hour or two, do the transcooler, diff fluid change, and an oil change. But my local Napa, which is the absolute worst part store, period, apparently is closed before 3 p.m. on Saturdays now. And it's probably because of the pandemic. But I needed to pick up fluids, oil, diff fluid, filter, all that stuff. And they're usually open till 3, swung in at 2:30, closed. So it's a Saturday, and they're not open tomorrow either. And so the next town over has like Advance, AutoZone, O'Reilly, etc. But I want to get something done today and not drive around all day. So new plan is we're going to tinker on the 700. I'm going to work on the center console for right now, just getting the old center console taken apart and out, possibly get the new faceplate on the dash in. And Corey is nice enough to tinker on just kind of tuning up, just looking at the engine stuff. Like I was just telling them that I haven't had the cap off in a while, and I don't even know what my points look like, if they need a file run through them, if the gap is, different now, if that's too tight or whatever. So my belt needs to get tightened up. Just the car, I didn't drive the car at all last year. The thing's just been sitting, and if I'm going to be putting it around for a short week here in a couple weeks, I'd really like it to be a little bit ready to go. All right, so as I was mentioning before, gonna get the center console out and and just work on a possible stand for it. And the one that I had in my Lada was kind of inspired by those old European Blaupunkt radio, like digital equalizers, basically, and they were like an OEM plus feature. A lot of BMWs and Volkswagens and Audis had them, even Porsches. But they would stand up like next to the shifter on a stand, and you could adjust and EQ your radio remotely from that, not the head unit. The Lada stand was to kind of emulate that style of like OEM plus, like European radio equalizer. So this being a BMW, I figured that would even more so kind of capture that essence. So I've worked on the computer a little bit already with a design. Most of the hard work of that design was done when I built the Lada. I made the shape a little bit smaller. I put the Ludwick's garage logo in it. And but for right now, I haven't made any of that stuff yet. We'll go to the laser shop when I do that. But I'm just going to work on the stand itself and just kind of get an idea as to placement and where everything's going to go and if it'll fit. Okay, so this is the center console out of the car. On the inside here, I had a power distribution block, so I just ran one line in from power and then distributed it throughout to the power switch, the USB charge ports, and ultimately before I had the airlift management in the car, I had some momentary switches here for some electronic solenoid valves. So that power also fed trigger point to all of the, or trigger power to all the switches. I made this mount here to mount the center console too, so I'm gonna get that out. There's a hole here that I need to cap. There's one back here I need to cap that center console kind of covered. So once I get all of that sorted out, I can kind of work on placement for the new stand. But it's 4 o'clock right now. And as you guys know, 3 o'clock is the afternoon coffee time. So where my shop is, there's a Dunkin' Donuts across the street, like literally across the street. So we're gonna get Dunkin's. Heck yeah. Channel sponsor. Oh, this is where the e-brake originally went. So there was already a hole here in the tunnel. And I don't want that hole to be there still. So what I'm gonna do is this piece I made to mount there, and then the acrylic center console fit down over that, and then 4 screws went through, just self-tapping screws to hold it to that, and that's how it mounted. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna make a flat plate that sits over this, and on that center console I had a leather pad with the vintage BMW logo engraved into it. Corey actually had a good idea to just put a flat plate here and do just that, put like a leather pad with that BMW logo engraved on it. And so I'll probably do that to just give the tunnel some contour to kind of break up the whole tunnel going all the way through, give it some like aesthetic value, but also having a leather pad like that is nice to set your phone on because it kind of acts as like an anti-slide pad. You can just set your phone down. And it just so happens there's a hole already in the pan between the seat and the tunnel that I can mount the base plate for the stand on, and that leaves enough room, like a straight up shot, for the aluminum rod to come up. I'll bend it along between the tunnel and the seat and bring it up ahead of that pad and just behind the shifter. And so I don't have some of the stock here that I need to do some of that stuff, so I'm gonna just write some notes down, get to my dad's shop, pick up some materials and hardware, and tackle that probably tomorrow. But while I'm here, I'm going to get to that plate. I'm going to take that plate out and put the new Ludwick's Garage laser engraved plate in. Since I never hooked that clock up, and that clock actually is like way newer looking than the rest of the car, so there's really no point to have that in here. So I'm gonna get this on. And as you can see, I laser cut the square holes for the carriage bolts right in it, because that's what I used for hardware on the dash. And this hole is for my alternator light as well. So just kind of like a delete plate. This plate actually went where the radio used to go. So there's a small vacant hole here, and then there's two holes that were the posts for tuning and volume on the radio. So I actually didn't cut anything into that dashboard by putting that plate there. And originally I didn't want to cut anything on the dash. I wanted to leave the dash as OEM as possible, until I realized that we full-blown cut this car to bits and built a tubular chassis inside it and set it down over a shortened Beetle pan. So it doesn't matter if I cut a hole in the dash. But this plate will actually work with the factory holes in the dash. Yeah, even before I sit in the car, I already like the white. Yeah. Because all the factory knobs are white. The cluster, like numbers and trim and all that are white. That's why I made this laser cut piece white, and ashtrays white. So I feel like that was a good little added piece. Little delete plate for the radio, but also houses the alternator light. Sweet. All right, guys, well, that will do it for this episode. I know it seems like we really didn't get anything accomplished, but if anything, I got a game plan together. First of all, I decided I was going to take the 700 to Riverside, so that was a big decision that had kind of been plaguing me, because I kept thinking about what I wanted to take down there. So 700's going, and got like an interior game plan together. Got the old center console out, got a design plan for capping the holes in the tunnel and how I'm going to go about mounting and building the mount that'll hold the 3P aero controller. Got the old radio delete plate out of the dash, got the new one in, alternator lights in. I had previously designed and made that plate already, so I had that ready to go. Corey helped out in the engine bay, basically cleaned up the cap. There's a little bit of carbon tracking in the cap. Got that cleaned up. Got the points gap reset. Those were pretty tight. I hadn't looked at any of that stuff in quite a while. Turns out I'm out of shims on the alternator pulley to tighten the belt. So basically it's just time to buy another belt, which is crazy because I've really only driven this car about a year. So gonna get a new belt, and yeah, just kind of got a punch list going. Got the front hood straps out. These hood straps I designed because basically the one, I like that style. I like the style of vintage like motorsport hood straps, especially leather ones. And I'd actually laser engraved the vintage BMW logo onto the straps, but I had engraved them onto the end of the strap, not realizing that when the car's aired out, that part of the strap, you can't even see it because it's basically at ankle height. But sitting out in the weather really needed to be retreated and oiled again because it had lost all of its like oil and had really become pretty pale in color. So I actually have some leftover leather that I use to make these straps and buckles with. So my plan is to remake the straps that mount to the hood, and that way it's a better looking leather. It's not quite as worn as the leather that was on here before. And I'm gonna laser engrave the Ludwick's Garage logo into it, but higher up so you can actually see it above the buckle on the car. So there's just one more thing I've added to the list. Small little detail things that I just kind of obsess over. But yeah, I mean, a lot was done in this episode, basically, as far as planning and punch list stuff and getting things in order. So yeah, next episode will be working out more of the interior and aesthetics of the 700, as well as getting the van sorted out. So I'm gonna be doing that next, getting the van all ready to go for the trip, fluid-wise, transmission cooler and all that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna be doing a lot more content on these cars, especially leading up to Riverside and through that whole trip as well. But leave a comment if you guys will be at Riverside in Chattanooga as well, if I'll see you guys in Tennessee. Hope to see you guys there. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.